rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. You would think that after being wrong so many times, these people, these naysayers, the ones that keep saying that Trump is out of his gourd, that Trump is nuts, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. You would think that they would finally realize that they're the idiots and would just shut up. But of course they don't, because they have no, self-cognizance. They're not aware of their own stupidity. That's obvious. But, yeah. Anyway, big announcements today. I'll get into them in just a minute. Plus, here in just a moment, we're going to kick off with a Scott Jennings truth bomb. Yeah, I know. Most of the time I don't do it right in the beginning of the show, but in this particular case, it just fits. So let's go ahead and get everything kicked off. Tonight we have Outlaw Dogs. Outlaw Dogs is over in the green room getting herself prepared for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Outlaw Dogs as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, Outlaw Dogs, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the Pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and then address that email to me. Send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. I have 23 of these. I'd like to have 26 by the end of 2026, so that means I need 3 more. So if you haven't done yours yet, please do so and send it in. If you use your phone, you can send it in directly from your phone by using the share option, that is the S-H-A-R-E option, and you'll be able to address it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I'll get you into the rotation. All right, so tonight's headline sponsor is not that. Hold on just a second. I got to get this right. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble here. There we go. It is theflagshirt.com. That is theflagshirt.com. I'm wearing one of their wonderful men's cotton polos right now. That's right. Very comfortable. I'm wearing the colors of our country, the U.S. flag. Themed shirt. You can go and get yours by heading over to theflagshirt.com. That's all one word, theflagshirt.com. And check out their men's, their women's, their kids, their made in the USA, all their accessories as well that are all in the wonderful red, white, and blue and have patriotic symbolism all over them. And don't forget to check out the America's 250th anniversary collection, because that's what's coming up in July is the America's 250th. Go and check that out. I've already gotten a couple of 250th flags running around here, hanging on the side of the studio and that kind of stuff. So anyway, right now, if you spend $100, you can get $20 off by using the code Patriot 2026. That's PATRIOT 2026. Patriot 2026 is the code to get $20 off when you spend $100 with theflagshirt.com. But I know not everybody can do $100. Some people may not want to buy $100 worth of gear. Maybe they only want 1 or 2 shirts. Well, I will help you out. If you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you'll be presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order on American Perspective. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get that coupon code to copy and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com to get your $5 off on American Perspective. Go and support a veteran-run, veteran-owned business at theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All righty, folks. Well, here we go. I got to tell you, if there is ever, outside of maybe Ketanji Brown Jackson, which, by the way, we've got something on her a little bit later, but outside of Ketanji Brown Jackson, if there was ever any other example to demonstrate that just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean you're smart, David Hogg would be it. Yes, that's right. David Hogg decided to make an appearance on CNN, which, you know, why they would have him come on to a news program to talk about the Strait of Hormuz is a little bit baffling to me. Why would you have somebody on who has literally zero foreign policy experience whatsoever? Well, the CNN producers thought that it would be a great time to have this guy on, and, well, I mean, we call him a guy. I don't know. He's thin enough, you could probably blow him over in the wind. Anyway, not like that really matters. But unfortunately for David, yes, good old Scott Jennings was there. He was there, and, well, he offered up the standard Scott Jennings truth bomb. That's Iran got a few of those here not too long ago. Anyway, so let's go ahead and listen to what the hog, the idiot hog, had to say about what was going on there. I got to find my cursor. There we go.
Anybody with an elementary school understanding of foreign policy could have told you the Strait of Hormuz was going to get shut down, and that is exactly
And who controls it right now? Who controls the
why are gas prices so high then?
Why were they high during Biden's administration? Did you like that?
It wasn't because of a because of a geopolitical
here's the deal.
fumble.
Who controls the Strait? You're using last week's talking points, David. We control the Strait. We are in charge of this.
Oh, by the way, David, the Strait of Hormuz is still controlled by us. And it's actually open right now. Yes, that is the great announcement. And it was announced, not only was it not announced by Trump, but it was announced by Iran themselves. They go, yeah, the Strait of Hormuz is fully open as long as we're in this ceasefire, as long as the Lebanon ceasefire is in place. Really? Really? So Iran tried to tie it to the Israeli-Lebanon ceasefire. And, yeah. Anyway, that's not why. what happened here more than likely is China basically said, you know what? We get 37% of our oil from there, and through their proxy, Pakistan, they said, Iran, you better frickin' back off. Now, keep in mind, folks, this does not mean that the blockade, the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports is over, because it's not. The Iran ports are still locked down. Okay? The Iran ports are still locked down, and they will continue to be. But the rest of the strait has been cleared of mines. And by the way, Iran kind of helped, apparently, reportedly helped define all the mines. But the strait has now been cleared of all those mines and is now open for business. Well, as soon as that got out, meaning that as soon as Iran announced it, guess what happened with the oil prices? Oh, yes. The oil prices did what oil prices do on good news like this. They dropped. Now, I want to say they dropped like a stone, but they didn't drop like a stone. They dropped 10% is the average. 10% is the average that has been trading pretty much all day long. And they dropped down, I mean, it's, a little here, a little there. It's like 10% here, 9% there, but on average, it was around 10%. They went from, $95 a barrel. They're now playing around in the 85 to 90 range. They were at $95 to $100 a barrel. Yeah, they've dropped. All because of the announcement about that. Oh, and let's not even talk about the stock market. No, let's go ahead. We'll talk about the stock market. The stock market actually was playing around with potentially going as high as 50,000 again. And that's, by the way, that's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Well, it closed today up $868.71. It had a 1.8% change, 1.79 is the actual number, percent change when the market closed. The S&P 500 up also about almost $85 is 84 3/4, a 1.2% change. The NASDAQ up $365.78. It was a change of 1.52%. So everything went up. Oil went down, everything else went up. So, yeah, this is all due to Trump. Now, let's see. Real quick, let me see if I can do the math. We started the Iran conflict on February 28th of this year. Today is April 17th of this year. And while the conflict isn't officially over, pretty much almost all of the major strategic points that I'm sure the American strategy covered have been reached. Almost. We're getting closer, but almost. So, pretty much at this point, you could say that we're in the final days, more than likely, of this. And what are we in? 47 days? 47 days. So, yeah. Anyway, 47 days in. And by the way, for those of you idiots who are out there who are calling Trump the Antichrist, yeah, you don't have any idea. You've got zero clue of what the Antichrist actually is. So, shut the hell up. Anyway, So Trump, well, Iran obviously announces, hey, the Strait of Hormuz is open today. It's open now. They tried to save face by saying it's because of the Israeli Lebanon ceasefire, which, by the way, again, keep in mind, Israel was not in a war with Lebanon. Israel was in a war with Hezbollah, which happened to be taking place in Lebanon. Anyway, another big announcement came out from Trump. The big announcement, of course, is another big announcement, of course, is that Iran. Sorry, I'm swatting an idiot over on YouTube. Oh, let me. There we go. All right. So Trump says that Iran has agreed to hand over their, quote, nuclear dust. Now, keep in mind that he's referring to the nuclear material that was bombed by the great B-2 bombers. There's going to be no money exchanged, according to Trump, in any way, shape, or form. So, in other words, they're just handing it over to us. That's all there is to it. They're just handing it over to us. And, yeah, they're just handing it over to us. So, no money going to be exchanged. So he announced today that Iran has agreed to transfer what Trump described as nuclear dust, which again was the material that he claims resulted from the airstrikes. In a social media post, Trump stated the USA will get the nuclear dust created by our great B-2 bombers. No money will exchange hands in any way, shape, or form. He emphasized that this agreement does not involve financial compensation and is separate from any of the recent developments in Lebanon, including the ceasefire. Trump also added that the United States itself would be working with Lebanon to address the Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorist group. Now, keep in mind, that is being watched over as well, because Lebanon has had a problem. They've had some serious issues with keeping Hezbollah in check, and they haven't really been able to do it. And so by Trump sitting there and basically saying, hey, Israel, Lebanon, and especially Lebanon, we're going to be at the table, meaning the U.S. We're going to be at the table. And because we're going to be at the table, I think that's going to make things different for Hezbollah. Now, keep in mind, Iran has used their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, to cause all kinds of problems for the world. Now, we've gone and made a pretty big impact on their ability to do all of that. So, yeah. Now, keep in mind, one of the main points of all of this, the naysayers were saying, oh, it's all about regime change. It's all about regime change in Iran. No, actually, it isn't. Oh, Trump's just going nuts. Trump's doing something crazy. No, he's been talking about Iran not having a nuclear weapon for like 40 years, so it's nothing new. So, yeah, this entire thing, once again, the naysayers are, yep, they're wrong once again. Now, keep in mind, again, as I said, the U.S. Navy blockade on Iranian ships and ports is going to remain in place until there is a broader agreement reached. So, And Trump confirmed this in a follow-up post on Truth Social, saying the blockade will remain in full force until our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. So there you go. Anyway. Again, positive signs, positive movements. He is doing what he said he was going to do. And you know what? He did it all in that 60-day window that he has available in the War Powers Act of 1972. So all of this BS talk from the left about impeaching him and 25thing him and all of this other stuff, saying he doesn't have a plan, saying that he's just doing this and has no clear objectives, so on and so forth. Yeah, okay. Once again, you're all wrong. I don't know why anybody would even listen to these people anymore. Seriously. Speaking of listening to people, here's from tonight's Dumbass Files. That's right. They still exist. I see them every once in a while. We play them every once in a while. Well, here is a dumbass. Now, what's really sad about this is actually the Secretary of State of Wisconsin. The Secretary of State of Wisconsin. Her name is Sarah Godlewski. I think I pronounced it correctly. Anyway, oh, yeah, you just got to hear it in her own words. I'm supposed to play the song first. I got to play the song first? Really? Okay. All right. Well, here we go.
You're a dumbass. You're a dumbass. You're grade A, number one, bona fide first class. You're a dumbass. You're a dumbass. And you'll be one all your dumbass life.
All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a listen to this dumbass. By the way, she's a Democrat, so there you go.
Republicans say we don't have climate change, but this is golf ball size hail in my front yard. This is not normal, and we can't keep ignoring our environment.
Really? Really? Golf ball size hail? Huh. I think I know some people in Texas. Oh, yeah. And by the way, there's the picture of the, quote, golf ball size hail. I think I know some people in Texas who would love to have a conversation with you. That's called weather, my dear. And by the way, scientifically speaking, the reason why it grows that large is because there is such an updraft that frozen pellets of ice, when they start to fall, okay, when they start to fall, they get sucked back up and refreeze. They'll start to fall, they'll melt on the outside, then they'll get sucked back up and refreeze. That's a condition called updrafts in weather. And then finally, when they have enough mass and weight to be able to counteract that updraft, is when they fall. Yeah. Yeah. This is known as weather. This is not climate change. This is weather. Not normal. You know what? I was in Texas in 1994, and we had plenty of not only golf ball size, but there's been all kinds of sized hail. In fact, I recall some of my friends having to get their windshields replaced and stuff because of it. So this has been around for, over 30 years. So yeah. Anyway, blaming the bad weather on climate change. By the way, just to give you some history here, in Wisconsin, this article in Town Hall went ahead and did it. I can't claim these numbers as my own. But apparently in 1921, there was hail measuring almost 6 inches in diameter was recorded nearing Wausau, Wisconsin, which is in the north central part of the state. For those of you that don't know, that's roughly the size of a actual DVD disc. So that's right about this size, 6 inches. Yeah. That's a pretty big thing of hail. That happened in 1921. On July 15th, 1980, a system blew across western Wisconsin with large hail and destructive winds. That particular storm caused $240 million in damage. Oh, and at St. Croix County, Croix, St. Croix County on the border near Minneapolis, Minnesota, they had 4.5-inch hail in June of 1988. That was part of a cluster of hailstorms. Same happened in 1997 in Lincoln County and the northeast part of the state, and in 2000 in Monroe County in the southeast or southwest part of the state. And of course, in April of 2006, according to records, a line of storms from Madison till Milwaukee produced tennis ball and baseball size hail. Yeah. Yep, it's normal. It's normal. It is completely normal. By the way, this is it looks like it's maybe potentially AI generated, but based on available historical weather records, one of the earliest specific mentions of golf ball size hail occurred on September 20th, 1885, in none other than Weatherford, Texas. Yeah. So, I'd like to kind of have somebody explain this to her. Although I doubt she's really going to pick it up because, let's just face it, once they're that stupid, there's no training them. There's no teaching them. There's no correcting them at all. At all. Well, let's go ahead and just continue with the dumbass files. In this particular case, let's talk about Justice Jackson. That's right. The activist who is not a jurist. And why they even call her a justice, I have no idea. She doesn't even know what a woman is. Anyway, apparently they were, they were at a guest lecture at the Yale Law School. This is another Ivy League school, Yale. I mean, we had Harvard with the brilliance of the Hog, and now we have the other brilliant intellectualist, Justice Jackson, at Yale. Apparently, they were there on April 13th, and they published this video of the event on April 15th. She essentially criticized her conservative colleagues on the court for issuing emergency orders that advance Trump administration policies. So she had a bit of a conundrum or an argument about this. And let me just put it this way. There is a quote unquote emergency docket, which goes by a couple of different names, one of them being the interim relief docket and called the shadow docket. And basically what this is it refers to applications that seek immediate action from the Supreme Court justices. Immediate action, meaning that they can't wait, whoever this person is, cannot wait for a case to percolate up through the Supreme Court or through the court system to get to the Supreme Court in order to gain some sort of relief. And she was being very critical of the fact that the conservative justices have been siding on Donald Trump's side for these things. Now, generally speaking, the issues that happen in emergency appeals is often whether or not a policy is being challenged, meaning a government policy is being challenged in court, and whether or not that policy should be allowed to take effect while the litigation, that could take years, by the way, to completely play out. Now, we all know that we have lower court rogue jurists. And by that, I seriously mean these federal court judges, district court judges that have been issuing nationwide injunctions and, universal injunctions and all these other things unconstitutionally, by the way, because they don't have that power. But, they go ahead and they issue them. And the Trump administration has been increasingly turning to the Supreme Court for emergency relief on these things, honestly, mainly because of the fact that this is all just a whole bunch of hocus pocus lawfare. And many times, and he's got a pretty damn good, or the administration, I should say, has had a pretty damn good track record so far this second term in getting things overturned. And that apparently is why Justice Jackson, I should say activist Jackson, well, maybe I should just start calling her Action Jackson, although that would be insulting to Carl Weathers and that 1980s movie with Craig T. Nelson. Anyway, I doubt anybody really remembers that movie, but whatever. All right. So she apparently said that she has come to neither praise nor bury the emergency docket. See, she believes that because the emergency docket uses truncated procedures to produce extremely consequential decisions, she said that it was important to return to the emergency docket to its traditional function within the overall appellate framework. So, according to her, the Supreme Court fails to acknowledge the harms that follow when the court consistently and casually divests the lower courts of their equitable authority. Okay, again, this is a woman who can't describe what she is. She's a woman, and she can't even say what a woman is. And she's going to sit here and try to tell everybody else that, hey, you know what? This emergency docket, which is, again, emergency injunctive relief from overstepping jurists that are stepping outside of their constitutional boundaries anyway. She's saying that they need to back off and allow the lower courts, which don't have constitutional authority over the president and policy. There's even some question as to whether or not the courts have any jurisdiction over policy, by the way. But I digress. According to her, she's calling them scratch paper musings over these lower court cases, and she says that it distorts the legal process. She also described orders that come from the emergency docket as back-of-envelope first-blush impressions of the merits of the legal issue. Such orders don't acknowledge that real people are involved, which makes them seem oblivious and thus ring hollow, she said. She also said that they come across as utterly irrational. Yeah. In her mind, she said the court should be more selective when intervening early in the legal process, instead of continually touching the third rail of every divisive policy issue in American life. I got a comment for you, lady. How about this? How about this? How about the Supreme Court actually follow the Constitution and start using the 10th Amendment as a reason to block and get rid of a whole bunch of crap that's in front of you? How about that? And that would be the Constitution, you know, the actual Constitution, the one that is not only a copy in this book, but also on display in Washington, D.C. You know, the Constitution, the thing that you guys are supposed to be making rulings over all the time, yet sometimes you never do. Just saying. Well, apparently this comes after Kavanaugh and her clashed over an emergency docket at a public event in the nation's capital. So she, of course, claimed that the Supreme Court is doing a disservice to both the court and the country by siding so often with the Trump administration in emergency rulings. That's actually her real problem, honestly. And Kavanaugh, of course, supported it and said that the Supreme Court is only doing its job by addressing the emergency applications that are filed. Now, Kavanaugh also said that some critics of recent orders did not object when the justices allowed the Biden administration policies that were being challenged to take effect, even as cases about them were pending in the lower courts. And he finished and says, well, none of us enjoys this. And he says that the issues for the justices are often complicated and the cases are close. I don't quite agree. But anyway. Yeah. She just wants to change how things are handled. Well, there is one case in the Supreme Court that is going to make a huge effect on our elections process. And no, I'm not talking about the birthright citizenship case, even though that one I have a feeling is going to come out with such a narrow ruling that it's basically just going to be a pencil point on a piece of paper as to how narrow the ruling is going to be. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is the one that appears that the entire Supreme Court is probably, well, maybe not the entire, but a majority of the Supreme Court is potentially going to say, hey, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, yeah, where, you know, it's race-based discrimination and we're going to throw it out. Because that kind of looks like that might be happening. And well, if it does, oh, the lefties are going to be upset. Yeah, the lefties are going to be upset. And here is why. Here is exactly why. This is just one example. So if you take a look at this, and you'll notice, well, let me, hang on. I got to recenter it here in the screen. There we go. So if you take a look at this map of districts in the South in particular, you'll notice that there's a bunch of blue on the left-hand side. That's the current district maps in the states of Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida. Well, if race is not considered a factor, the maps could come out looking like what's on the right, where there's hardly any blue in the state. Because what has happened in many of these states that have been gerrymandered so bad, they've created these districts that are essentially run around the majority of voters being either a certain race, because apparently the Black Americans are under the understanding, phallically or falsely, they're falsely under the impression that they have to vote Democrat, even though they don't, and they keep getting used by the Democrats all the time. But if race is taken out of it, then what ends up happening is these redistricts, the districts end up changing. and they become more what is considered to be more Republican. Now, this is just 1/4 of the country. This policy can apply across the entire United States because, again, this is a U.S. policy in terms of the Voting Rights Act. Oh, hey, by the way, just as a side note, that the Voting Rights Act actually means that Congress applied its authority under the Constitution to create nationwide election law. And all you idiots that are out there saying that the states are the ones that control all the election law because of the fact that you don't like the SAVE Act, well, here's one example of many where Congress has done this, where Congress has created national election law. But I digress again. Anyway, the point is that Democrats in the South, they don't like this. And it's not just in the South, it's all over. Just think of like California, for an example, Illinois, New York, all of these places. There's a bunch of them in Illinois in particular. There's a bunch of them that would maybe be forced to change their redistricting because of the fact that they are counting things like race as a part of it. So this particular case, which, by the way, the lefties on the court are apparently dragging their feet to come up with an opinion over this, according to a new report. And they're dragging their feet because of the fact that they don't want this to come out right before the 2026 midterms. Because if it does come out, there will be a scramble, a potential scramble to redraw and completely reshape the midterms. See, I told you, folks, I mentioned it. I was like, I think that this term of Trump's term is going to be very consequential, not just because of Trump, but because of all of the things that are going to be discovered and everything else. This is realistically turning into a historic time in politics. And I know for those of us who enjoy politics and like looking at all this and exploring all this and analyzing all this, this is exciting. So, yeah. So anyway, Sean Spicer, of course, suggested the idea that the dissenting minority on the court is actually dragging its feet for this. He says that he has reliable sources that the decision itself is done and that the minority is actually slow walking the dissent so that states do not have time to redistrict ahead of the midterm 2026. And again, the dissenting judges are most likely Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Or possibly even Chief Roberts as well as part of it, if this comes down to a 5-4. Now, if the states don't have enough time to redraw all of their districts and their maps before the 2026 midterms, the ruling itself becomes functionally meaningless for this cycle. However, and Democrats will keep their gerrymandered seats for another 2 years, regardless of what the Constitution actually says. However, it does change things for 2028, which will also be very interesting. We're going to have to see what happens there. All right, let me talk to you real quick. Take a quick break before I get on to the next topic. I want to talk about the advantages to Rumble Wallet. So keep in mind, banks can cancel your accounts. Banks can freeze your cards. Banks can decide, and even the government is looking to decide what you're allowed to buy. We've already gone after what we're allowed to say. We saw that happen during COVID. and what you're allowed to support. Big banks and financial institutions, they have total control, and as we've already seen, the government has influenced them in order to use it as well. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever, especially if you're a conservative like me. And for that, Rumble is introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet that's built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. By cancel, meaning canceling you. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, like me, okay, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to tip directly to the content creators, securely, instantly, and without any interference from even the platform Rumble. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. This is your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future. Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, about ownership, and it's about protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download the Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. Go to wallet.rumble.com. That's wallet, WALLET.rumble.com for more details and to check out this independent financial accessory. Go to wallet.rumble.com or click on the QR code here on the screen. So wallet.rumble.com to get more information and decide whether if this is something that you want to go ahead and do. Go to wallet.rumble.com. And remember, Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom. All right. So Clarence Thomas was at a event. He was speaking at an event that was honoring the nation's 250th birthday. And apparently this is a rare public appearance for the Supreme Court's longest serving justice. Supreme Court justices typically refrain from commenting publicly on politics, but as we now know, there is a lot of commenting all over the place. So Thomas, by the way, warned these college students, this was on Wednesday, of the dangers and the rise of progressivism and urged them to actually stand up for the principles that the founders intended for the United States. He acknowledged before the Texas audience that the founding fathers' principles themselves have fallen out of favor in recent decades and urged younger generations to stand up for their own ideals. He said, according to Fox News, "I think if we don't stand up and take ownership of our country and take responsibility for it, we are slowly letting others control how we think and what we think." He says progressivism seeks to replace the basic premises of the Declaration of Independence and hence our form of government. It holds that our rights and our dignities come not from God, but from the government, which is wrong. That's progressivism. He goes, it requires, meaning progressivism, it requires the people a subservience and weakness incompatible with the Constitution, premised on the transcendent origin of our rights. He also noted the dangers of progressivism that could happen on the future of the Supreme Court, noting that already justices are not as close as they used to be. He says, I joined the court that dealt with differences as friends, as we respected each other. That's civility. I don't know how you bring it back in the current environment with social media and name calling and all, and people accusing each other of various things and animus. He continued and says, I fear that that's going to infect institutions such as the court and judges, etc. in the future, because these are young people who will be in these jobs. Now, keep in mind, this guy may potentially be up for retirement soon. The longest serving justice ever on the Supreme Court and one of the wisest men that has ever sat on that bench. If Trump gets the opportunity to replace him and Alito, or both, and potentially replace Sotomayor, I just hope that Trump picks wisely. Much more wisely than what he did with Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch and even Kavanaugh. I already explained to you the other night that we need somebody who is a historian, not just a judge. Actually, they probably shouldn't even be a judge. They shouldn't even be a lawyer. What they should be is a historian, an American-loving, strict constitutionalist who understands the Constitution as written and brings in references to things like the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the writings of Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, so on and so forth. You need somebody who is able to temper these people and basically say to all of them, both in public as well as in private, you people are idiots. That's right. That's what needs to happen. All right. Well, as we wind down here for the evening, there was a revelation. See, you know how all of the leftist lunatics have been talking all this time? They've all been saying, hey, we didn't know anything about Eric Swalwell's problems. We didn't know anything about how Eric Swalwell was. People even close to him is supposed to be his best friend. Oh, yeah, we didn't know anything. He lied to all of us. Well, Kevin McCarthy, he, let's just say he opened up on Jesse Waters' show. And, let's say it doesn't look good for some of these people. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
What'd you know about Swalwell?
Well, let's do a quick history. When I became leader in 2019, I heard that Swalwell, that the FBI had warned Congress and the leaders when Nancy Pelosi appointed him to the Intel Committee a couple of years ago. And you've got to understand how big this is. You only get appointed by the leader. It is the most coveted position in all of Congress. And he gets on in his sophomore year, and the FBI comes knocking to John Boehner and Nancy Pelosi and say, you got a problem here. This person has a relationship with a Chinese spy. Lo and behold, when I find out, because I wouldn't have known this before, I asked for a briefing, and I have Nancy Pelosi there with me. Now the FBI has a number of years and gives us the complete investigation on this. I literally turn to her in that room and say, how could you keep him on this committee knowingly? And Swalwell is her protege. Schiff and Nancy Pelosi protected this person, elevated him, made him like vice chair of the steering committee. He was so protected by Nancy Pelosi, she wouldn't remove him. I'm in the minority. I go to the floor and make a privileged motion based upon the information I have to remove him from the Intel Committee. They have 200 other members they could appoint there. She brings the hammer down. All those Democrats, every single one of them, vote against it to keep him on. 2 years later, I become Speaker. Hakeem Jeffries nominates him to go back on steering. I sit down with Hakeem and say, please, Go get the FBI briefing, and let me tell you this, he's not going on the Intel Committee based upon the information I have, and you need to have it as well. Still protected the whole time by Nancy and Adam Schiff. Remember what they did in this governor's race. They hate Katie Porter so much when she started to rise. Swalwell wasn't even in the race. They push him in the race, and they put their whole apparatus around it. The California Teachers Association endorses. The SEIU, the strongest union in California. They don't just endorse, they pour millions of dollars into a super PAC. He was on the way, but there was one endorsement missing, Nancy Pelosi. And the moment it breaks, and remember where it breaks, the San Francisco Chronicle. This is the same newspaper that criticized me for removing Swalwell from Intel or trying to remove him before. And now they write this story. She leaves instantly. Nancy Pelosi starts to move to remove him. Gomez and Gallegos, Gallego was his chairman of Swalwell's presidential campaign. They went everywhere together. And normally when you go on foreign trips, it's Republicans and Democrats, your spouse is with you. They went on a lot of trips, just the two of them, in a lot of places. I think people need to look at that. Same thing with Gomez. He becomes, Congressman Gomez, the chairman of his governor's race. Why did everybody leave so quick? Did they know more? Now, I had never heard about these alleged rapes or this drugging of women, but I had heard about Democrat staffers. Now, if I heard about that, you know Speaker Pelosi had to hear from her wing. I heard from Democrat congresswomen about how sleazy he was. They knew it. Look, we're a microcosm of society. They had Swalwell, we had Matt Gaetz. But people had to stand up and do something about it.
Oh, my goodness. Let me just tell you. I mean, yeah, they knew. They knew. They had to know. Schiff had to know. Nancy Pelosi had to know. And, yeah. So there you go. I can't even believe this. Can't even believe this. Why? Yep. Yep. By the way, there is a suggestion that a ally of Porter in the governor's race is believed to be the one who informed the San Francisco Chronicle about Swalwell's problem. So, Katie Porter. They're suggesting that she's the one, that one of her allies is the one that broke it open. There's still going to be more out of this. There's still going to be more out of this stuff. So, yeah. Well, I mean, at least he's out. At least he's gone. That's the main thing, is that he's out and he's gone. And it's one person that's gone. And a couple others have fallen out because of it. So just hopefully we're going to be taking out the trash for the next 2.5 to 3 years while Donald Trump is in office. Alrighty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, don't forget, before you take off, thumbs up, thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, the thumbs sideways. We will see you tomorrow night, 1 hour later, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.